I'll go ahead and say. All right. So, Kenny Florian here with us today, joining us for a conversation about your upcoming seminar. Excited to get into it about what you plan on doing, what has you coming out to Utah. But to kick off with, for anybody who may not know you, which is going to be my finance community, why don't you give a little bit of background about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. I guess I'm a martial artist first. That's what I first fell in love with. First started doing martial arts as a kid. Then got into it way more seriously after I graduated from Boston College. And I was working a full-time job at the time. I was actually translating financial documents. And I was in Brazil on a training trip, and I had like this near-death experience where I fell off a cliff. And that experience really pushed me to make me realize that life is short. And I had this thing that I really was in love with, which was martial arts. And I decided to dedicate myself to martial arts for the rest of my life. After that experience, I thought it was going to be as a teacher. I ended up going on to the first season of The Ultimate Fighter. Made it to the finals. I was the least experienced. I was the smallest guy on the show. Made it to the finals somehow, got lucky, and then I got massacred in the final. And it was that experience that really said, okay, I know what my journey is actually going to be in martial arts. I want to be a professional fighter. I don't want to go out like that. Like literally, the fight that everybody was watching was the one I did the worst on. And, that kind of really pushed me to understand, the psychology behind fighting and performance and what I needed to do to get better in that regard. Now, Diego Sanchez was way more experienced than me. I probably would have lost anyway, but I wanted to figure that out. Like, how do I get myself to perform when I need to? And that became this lifelong journey, competing and fighting in the UFC, fought for 3 world titles in 2 different weight classes. I am also currently a fifth degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. I've been doing that a long time. And I just have a passion for martial arts. I have a passion for teaching and instructing and seeing it change people's lives. I'm a competitive shooter as well. I'm a master class shooter in USPSA and the carry optics division. I'm a dad. I have 2 kids. And let's see, I'm also a broadcaster. I commentated for the UFC for a long time, both as a broadcaster for the live fights and as an analyst at the desk for a long time. Also did that same thing for the Professional Fighters League. And I have a podcast with John Anik called the Anik and Florian Podcast. I
Great
also do.
podcast.
Yeah, thank you. And I also I'm a broadcaster for a show called BattleBots, where we've been on ABC, we've been on Discovery Channel, and maybe we are coming back with another show. So, anyways, yeah, so I've done a bunch of TV stuff, and yeah, I've been really lucky because I feel like martial arts has given me pretty much everything. A lot of my friends come from the martial arts community, and yeah, originally from Boston. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina now, and hopefully that sums it all up.
Ooh, wow. Well, goodness, first of all, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's a
There's
lot.
so much we could unpack there. We're
Yeah.
only going to do this for 30 minutes, so I don't think we'll get to a bunch of it.
Yeah, I
But
probably spoke way too long, but anyways.
no, I love that. That's a really good introduction for anybody who's going to be listening that might not have known you from the MMA world, but you've done so much. Uh, I was just thinking, as you mentioned, like near-death experience, and then you decided with that near-death experience, I'd like to experience near-death more times. That's all I heard. Let's go ahead and put ourselves in a cage and really focus
Yeah, exactly.
on illness. All jokes aside, how big of it was a switch? How big of a switch was it for you to go from, what you'd been studying at Boston College, which, by the way, great college, sound like you had a good idea of where you wanted to go career. How much of a switch was that for you? And then how much of a switch was that maybe for your parents and your friends?
It was a massive, massive switch and life change. I went from, having a good job, security financially, to really not knowing how I was going to make my money moving forward. At the time, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu wasn't this thing that you could find everywhere. Now there's gyms everywhere in every city in every state, all that stuff. Back then, people had to go, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, what? Like, what is that? So making that decision to leave a full-time job um, carried a lot of risk and quite frankly, a lot of fear as well on my part because everyone around me was telling me, like, that's a stupid decision. That's crazy. That's ridiculous. What are you doing? Um, and it almost was like everywhere I kind of turned, I was like seeing roadblocks in a lot of ways. So I really didn't know how I was going to move forward after that. I just knew that life was short and we only have one of them. And like, and to go back to that experience, as I was falling, I literally remember feeling sadness, knowing that I was too much of a wimp. I was too fearful to chase this thing that I loved called martial arts. And that was like kind of like
Wow.
the most impactful moment as I was falling. And I saw a lot of different things. I got literally had that like life flash before my eyes, but that was one of the things that I was most sad about as I was falling because I said, well, I guess this is how I'm going to die. And wow, I never had the courage to go and chase this thing that I loved. So that was a huge moment for me in my life. And again, it was like, my dad was a physician. He's a thoracic and cardiovascular surgeon. Both my parents are pretty conservative. They sent me to
This is the
Boston College.
shock. This is
Yeah,
not the path they wanted.
I was supposed to go to law school. I was supposed to be a lawyer. I was supposed to do all these things. And I kind of had to tell them, like, this isn't for me. I need to do this. And yeah, so that's how that kind of all went down.
Well, literally went down,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then you came up, and you came up really quickly because the way I got to know you was as a fanboy watching you on The Ultimate Fighter. Uh, I was always interested in fighting. I, at that point, was training and doing jujitsu, but watching somebody there, you became the poster child for so many of our generation because you were the poster child of why you should train MMA. You can look like anyone, and you can do it. The other thing that was joke and I think said famously by multiple people, including Dana White, this guy looks like he should be doing your IT, and yet will murder you. So I
yeah,
loved it because for me, I was also fighting around that time, just fighting locally, regionally, and it was a hobby for me that happened to pay money, is what I said. And
yeah.
so, and I got to have some representation with me and my finance background saying, see, these are my people, the people that are supposed to be looking like they're behind a desk out there crushing it, Ken Flo in the elbows.
Yeah,
So
it's tough because it's one of those things that I think that you know there wasn't a whole lot of outlets to make money, and there was a lot of uncertainty, certainly as a professional fighter. And I do feel like I also, yeah, I worked really really hard, but I also feel like I also had a lot of luck in my life too. I think God really presented a lot of very big opportunities in my life, and I'm very grateful for that too. There's a lot of luck sometimes involved with what you do, and kind of being at the right place at the right time. And if you combine that with hard work, I think that good things happen.
that's right. That saying, luck is when opportunity and preparation meet. So I think a lot of people, they have luck, they just don't take advantage of it because they don't see it there. But if your mindset's
Yeah.
set the right way, uh, you can go really far. And that's exactly what you did. Like you said, you fought for the title 3 different times in multiple weight classes. You've fought in multiple organizations. You broadcasted. You've done so much. You've become a pillar of the MMA community and really been one of the stewards that can champion us because you do speak fluently in MMA, but also you're articulate. You don't come across as what people might expect would be a fighter. So thank you for that. But let's
Thank
jump
you.
into this. We're talking today because we've got something coming up next week. And what brings me to my first question for you, you're coming out for a seminar to Utah. When was the last time you were out in Utah?
So I've never been to Utah, man. I've heard so many amazing things, and I have never been. So I'm super excited to go out there and experience what Utah has to offer.
Perfect. Well, when we say Utah, what do you think? Everyone has ideas.
I think mountains. I think mountains. I think beauty. I think skiing. I think nice people, so I love nature, and I would love to kind of see all the beautiful nature that Utah has to offer. And yeah, I have a lot of friends from Utah, and that's all I keep hearing is just how beautiful it is. So
Perfect. Yeah, I think it's great. We're going to have you here. We're very excited for it. So, in your opinion, what do you think is the most interesting thing about Utah?
let's see. Gosh, I guess you know, I've had a lot of friends growing up and a lot of different people that I knew that were really into skiing, and Utah was always the place that everybody wanted to go to for skiing. So, at some point, maybe we won't have that opportunity, but at some point, whether it's snowboarding or skiing or just seeing the slopes would be super cool. But
Yeah, we'll get you to
it
ski
gives me
'em.
another excuse to come back. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I agree. Skiing's for most people. Unfortunately, with the weird weather we're having this year, you'll get to see the mountains, but they're not going to be covered in snow right now. But I will
yeah,
definitely make sure you get to see them, and we'll just have to make sure we can rain check this for another time out. Uh,
yeah, for sure.
this kind of shifts a little bit in gears here. Um, one of the things that most people don't know, but that we pride ourselves on, is that uh, Utah has a really thriving jujitsu and mixed martial arts scene here. And from your standpoint, are there any people from Utah that stand out to you as like, hey, these are good people, good places to train, good people to maybe learn jujitsu or MMA from? Anybody you know out here?
Well, obviously there's Jeremy Horn, and I'll be there. I don't know too many jujitsu people from Utah, interestingly enough, but there really has been a whole lot of UFC fighters, or a handful of UFC fighters that have come out of Utah. And obviously, having the high altitude training, I think, makes it more difficult. And a lot of people kind of go there and enjoy the high altitude training and all that stuff. But yeah, so I'm really curious to go out there and see what the scene has to offer. Obviously, Jeremy has been, one of the biggest legends in mixed martial arts. That was a guy that I came up watching for a very, very long time. He's like the Iron Man of MMA. So I'm excited to check out the gym and meet all the students.
Oh man, we're so excited to have you. Jeremy Horn, I agree. You can't over emphasize, I think, his importance in the early days of MMA for us being a pioneer, but also just how many fights he did and how successfully he did it at. So
Yeah.
he's going to be there. You're going to be at his gym. We're also going to try and make sure we get you in front of some of the other people because, as I mentioned, Utah does have a pretty good MMA scene. There's people like Ramsey in the gym, Steve
Yep.
Seiler, Sean O'Connell, which obviously a buddy of yours, somebody you've had a
Of
few
course.
interactions with, he'll be there as well. But when we think about this, tell me, what do you know about Jeremy Horn, and what do you think about the guy?
Yeah, so I've actually like never had a conversation with Jeremy. And he was always the guy that I watched as a fighter because, oh, I guess even before I was a fighter, because he was one of the true like mixed martial artists. He wasn't a guy that, yes, he was an amazing grappler and he was amazing striker, like, but he was able to integrate everything together at a very, very high level. And I also saw that he was a very intelligent fighter. Like he always found a way to adapt and adjust during a fight, in other fights, and was always a guy that was elite for many, many years. It's one thing to, reach the top of the mountain. And then a lot of times those guys kind of fade away. I think it's all the more impressive when you see a guy that's been able to set a high standard and keep that high standard for an extremely long time. And also through almost like a couple generations, right? I think he has over 90 wins, which is just insane. And I think the other thing that's all the more impressive is the fact that he wasn't those guys that like he was one of those guys that took a lot of damage. Like he was incredible defensively as well. So hard to finish, so hard to take out, and so hard to even cut and like land a lot of clean shots. And that to me is the sign of a martial artist. And Was he a fighter? Absolutely. He was tough as nails as well. I mean, you don't get to that level without being tough. But what I appreciate was the intelligence, the strategy, and the technique that he brought every time he fought.
I love that because that's one of the things I personally admire about you and him. It's something I see so many similarities between the two of you. I thought you were just a brilliant tactician. You always had a good strategy. It seemed like you were always training with a purpose. And like, there's people who will go into a fight, my good friend Marcus Johnson fought in the UFC, things like that. But, he'd go in there and have a car wreck. And then there's people like you that it was very disciplined. It seemed like there was always a reason for what you're doing. Jeremy Horn, you just said, I couldn't agree more. When I met you, I really felt like I'm meeting a more social version of Jeremy Horn right now. So you're just a more outgoing, articulate person than Jeremy Horn. But other than that, so similar. You're both fighting, both shooting. He's really into gaming. So too, then that's something you'll have in common that I know nothing about. But that brings me to kind of the next little bit of question. So you're coming out for the seminar, and it's 2 days. It's on February 20th for I think it's 3 hours starting at 5, and then the next day there's a private shooting event that's already fully sold out. But if somebody, I think there's still a few slots left at the seminar. If somebody were going to say, "Hey, I want to come out here," what would they expect to learn?
Yeah, so I think what probably separates maybe my seminars from other seminars is I really try to focus on teaching the practitioner how to teach themselves. Because obviously, like, I can't be around all the time, right? I'm not going to be in Utah, past that seminar. I'm gone. But I think that one of the things that you can give someone, and this was something that I always kind of chased in a coach, was like, what kind of concepts can I learn where I know those things are true. And if I follow those rules or follow those concepts, that's something that I can use to kind of teach myself and fix whatever issues I have. Um, Something inevitably is going to come up where you're unsure of how to approach a certain thing. But I think one of the things that you can use, similar to, let's say, being out in nature, would be a map. It's like, okay, maybe I don't know where I am right now, but if I know where north, south, east, and west is, I can find my way back home. And that's what I try to communicate to people is like kind of give them a general map and understanding of what they're doing. Um, you know, Giving them very specific directions is cool. And some people learn extremely well that way and are very good at that. But the way I see self defense is we don't, we can be prepared for things that we know, but what makes martial arts and self defense so interesting is we actually have to prepare for what we don't know, right? I don't know if that person has a knife. I don't know if that person has a gun. I don't know if that person knows how to fight or not. Um, and I don't know how they're going to come at me. So I think the key is having, those truths in your back pocket and understanding how to approach certain things where you can have the answers, even if maybe you haven't seen the question before or the problem before.
I love that. Well, sorry, I was chuckling myself as this is being described because Jeremy Horn is famous for really breaking things down. His analogy is the same way, but when I hear you breaking it down almost scientifically, like a map, here's your compass, here's where you find direction. Jeremy does so much similar things. Talking to a new student who's trying to go through the mechanics of an arm bar and how to set up. No, it's fulcrum. What I need you to understand is you need
Yes.
mechanical leverage and going
Yes.
through it. So I love it that you approach it that way. Also, simple enough so that if somebody doesn't have a background in math, that they can still do it. So,
Yeah.
um, well, I want to do this. We only have 10 minutes left. I want to get to a few rapid fire questions in a bit, but I would love to do this just for me personally. So, somebody has had such a storied career. You've been a generational talent. You've fought the best. You fought the top organization. From your standpoint, when you look back over your, what was your favorite fight?
My favorite fight was probably against Takanori Gomi. It was a guy that I always wanted to fight. I thought maybe I'd be able to fight him in Japan one day, but it ended up being in the UFC, in his UFC debut. And it was a main event fight. So, a lot of eyes were watching that day. And it was a fight I always wanted. And I think I performed really, really well. That was one of the ones where I tend to be very overly critical of myself. And while it wasn't a perfect fight by any means, I do think it was a good overall performance from me where I was able to strike with one of the best strikers in mixed martial arts history at the time, one of the best 55ers in the world. And yeah, I was pretty satisfied with that fight as well. So it was a fight I always wanted, and I performed pretty well. Oh, you're cutting out a little bit, David. Sorry. I
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
think you're going in and out. There we go. Now I can hear you.
Okay, sorry
Okay.
about that.
No
Uh,
worries.
well, maybe you should have cut me off, but I was fanboying out because I remember watching that fight
Oh, cool.
and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so excited because I'd watched Takanori Gomi in Pride Days, things like that. And
That's
so
awesome.
there was a lot built up when I looked at. Uh,
I, I sorry, I couldn't hear the last 10 seconds.
oh, well, I was
There
just
we
saying,
go.
I
Now I
thought it
got
was
you.
a master class.
Oh,
Like,
thank you,
such
man.
a good
Thank you.
job
Thank you.
with it. We'll try and fix that in the post. But
Yes.
for now, let's jump to this. We won't spend a lot of time here, but if there was one fight you wish you could redo,
Oh,
which fight would that
gosh, the BJ Penn fight. BJ was one of those guys that I really looked up to and kind of idolized, if I'm being candid. And I think that's not a very good way to approach someone who you're going to fight. He was like my jujitsu hero, and then he was my mixed martial arts hero. And then, I trained with him before. So I kind of put him on a pedestal. And someone was actually talking about it today in a video. And if you're going in with that mindset of here's this guy that you have to beat and he's your idol, it's a very difficult way to approach that fight. So I think you can respect someone, but you can't respect them so much that maybe you feel like you're not capable of beating them, or you put them on this high pedestal as a fighter, and you think they're invincible. That's not good. And you know, I just feel like I had the wrong mindset heading into that fight, and but also conversely, I overtrained for that fight like crazy, because I was so nervous about that fight. I felt like I went way too hard, way too quickly. And I had like a surgery before that fight, and I was supposed to wait a lot longer. And I went right into training, didn't give myself any kind of a break. And it was just, there were so many things that went wrong, both before the fight and during the fight. So that's one that I wish I could get back. Yeah.
Well, I will say, first of all, yes, you are fighting. Yeah, BJ Penn was the reason I got into fighting, like legitimately.
Yeah.
And I can, and we can get into it another time, but the first and only time I met BJ Penn, I embarrassed myself so badly. So the idea of fighting him would have been 1,000 times worse. I, I screwed it up so bad just shaking hands with the guy.
That's
I
so
can't
funny.
imagine what that was like. So don't worry
You
about
can
that.
understand. You can understand. Good.
I can definitely understand. And you're just waving around. I couldn't have even held my hands up to even try to punch the guy. So
That's
I
funny.
think, you're your own worst critic, and obviously there's a lot of things
Thank you,
sucks.
man.
Well, let's do this. We've got 4 minutes left. Let's take a minute to just go through some rapid fire things. So
Cool.
short little responses. You tell me first thing that comes to mind, 2 to 3 words tops. Okay, so how old were you when you started training?
When I started training MMA, when I started training jiu-jitsu, eh, sorry, I'm not answering one word. 19 years old is when I really started. I did karate as a kid, but so did everybody else. 19, I'll say that.
19. All right.
Yeah.
Now, who would you say it was your most impactful coach?
I have to say Roberto Maya. If he did not accept me as a student and give me like a free scholarship, none of this would have happened. Yeah.
Go look that up afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, let's talk this. Uh, Do you have a favorite fight of Jeremy Horn?
I do. I remember very vividly his first fight against Chuck Liddell, where he won, I believe, by arm triangle. So, yeah, that was super cool.
That's awesome. Okay, now we already answered this one, but let's say your favorite fight of yours, short take.
Yeah, Gomi. Gomi fight, my favorite fight.
All right, now favorite place to fight that you ever fought.
Vegas.
Right.
Yeah, Vegas. Most of my fights were there anyway, so
Okay. What uh, would you rather end a fight, striking or submissions?
I think more striking. I had a bunch of submission wins, but striking would have been more striking wins would have been cool.
Like it. All right. Uh, greatest fighter we've never heard of.
Gosh, greatest fighter we've never heard of. Oh my gosh.
Well, Jim, things like that. It's just one of the things I always like knowing. Sometimes the toughest people are people you've never heard of.
Yeah.
We can
Gosh.
come back to that. We'll save
Well,
that for
I remember jujitsu wise, there was a kid at Gracie Baja. He was this skinny, lanky kid. His name was Saul, and he never competed like at a high level, like in the world championships or anything like that, like too much past purple belt. But he was an absolute savage. Like he was one of the best guys on the mat, and he didn't like compete like everybody else. But this guy Saul, I don't even remember his last name, but he was amazing.
all right. Two final questions.
Yep.
Number one is one rule you change in MMA right now.
I think, honestly, just like pushing more action, having them, just kind of be more active as much as possible, whether it's by rules or I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wish they'd bring back the yellow card.
Yes. Yeah. There
Um,
you go. Something like that.
uh, well, great. And last question for you then. Are seminars worth it?
Absolutely. I've learned a ton from doing seminars, and I think there's a lot of value for sure. Just seeing a different perspective, even if you just get one technique, it's something that could change your whole game.
I love it. And on that note, everybody, if you're interested, you want to come to the seminar, it's on February 20th at Jeremy Horn's Elite Performance, and tickets are $60. And we'd love to see you there. I think there's about 10 slots left, so you're going to have to move fast. On that note, we'll see you again soon.